wonderful panel here today. I'll do a quick intro and then I will pass over to our speakers. So we're going to start with housing, hot topic. Some of you may already have covered your bases with that. Others might still be looking for some tips. So Karen is going to give you some advice on housing. Then we're going to move to Dave, who's going to talk about transport, cars, hiring drivers and the like. We will then bounce back to Sally, who's going to talk about eating healthily, nutrition, being sustainable here and your kind of lifestyle, food and at home. Meg is then going to cover medical bits and pieces. And Ibu Dawi will cover really, I think, top line Indonesian culture, any specific things she feels you should know about to really immerse here. And then we will open the floor to you to ask any questions that you have. So be approximately 10 minutes per panelist, and then plenty of time to open up the floor to you. So I'm going to hand over, with no further ado, to Karen, and enjoy. And obviously, if you need to make a sharp exit to bathrooms or anything like that, please do just quietly. They're down by finance. You probably know that already. And there is tea and snacks, so please help yourself. Okay, over to you.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. Welcome. Can I just ask, firstly, how many of you are very recent arrivals, like in the last kind of week or so? Yeah, 2 weeks. 2 weeks? Okay. Okay, all right, all fairly recent. And are you all kind of in houses already? Are you settling? You're still on the house hunt? You got an interim? Okay. House hunting. Okay, all right. I think that's helpful probably for all of us. When I first arrived at Green School, I've been here, this is our 7th year. Now my daughter's in grade 12. These sessions were typically kind of held your first week in. We'd get off the plane last week and we'd be at this session. So the volume of information that we got was very tip of the iceberg. And 7 years later, I guess I'm still learning. But for all of us, I guess there's a bit of a sense as to we can give you a very base level information, or we can give you some of the nitty gritty. So I think we'll just keep it quite high level. With that intention of just giving you enough to get you started. And part of the exciting thing about Bali is that it's very much about the journey, and it's very much about learning along the way, and we don't want to take that experience away from you. You know, the kids are all in an experiential school. It's exactly the same for us. So part of the fun of being here in those first few months is exploring and making mistakes to some extent as well. You know, we learn from those, and there's a whole community here to help guide and support, but it very much has to be your journey as well. The map that's on the I was going to say board, it's not really a board or overhead, on the projector. This is Bali, obviously. So the main, actually, does someone want to point or? So school is around kind of this area. I probably should have asked one of the locals to. Do you want to? Yes. Where is school exactly? Yes, over there. In here? Yes. In Tabanan or in Badung? We're in Badung. Okay. So school is kind of here. Ubud is a centre for many families. We tend to find at the minute, and it does change from year to year, that Ubud's kind of concentrated more with the younger age groups. As your kids get older and start to have a bit more of a social life, I guess, they're kind of moving down to Canggu area. There are some families that live in Sanur, although I think that's only ever been a handful each year. I guess holiday spots, if you're interested in those. Nusa Dua, this area, Nusa Dua, Uluwatu, Nusa Penida and Lembongan and Cheningan is part of Bali. Families holiday up in Ahmed and Talamban, Pemutaran, Lavina, and the volcano areas as well. Each of those areas is kind of divided up into each of the regencies. So we tend to kind of refer, when we're talking about salaries, for example, or minimum wages or whatever, we talk about Gianyar or Badung Regency. So it just kind of gives you a little bit of a sense. We go to the next slide, please. In Indonesia, you're going to find a whole host of different housing styles. This one here, this is one of our beautiful homes, one of the mud homes in the eco village. This one's up in the one near school, but we also have eco villages that were all privately built and they're all privately owned, most of them by Green School families, but there's another one in Ubud. This is That's more of the internal of the eco-village. In the middle, that's one of the green village houses that was built by Ibuku. The one on the top right is a Joglo-style housing, so Javanese, typically open living, and then obviously the bottom right one is that more kind of modern style. So it really is personal choice. If you're choosing to live in the jungle, there very much has to be an acceptance of the fact that you're living with wildlife and insects are very much a part of that. If we come to live in the jungle, mosquitoes and geckos and sometimes snakes and monitor lizards are a big one as well. So it's one of the things that we need to accept with outdoor living. So it's kind of the indoor-outdoor living is a big decision for people. What do we feel more comfortable with as a family? Very much personal choice. You might find though in wet season that you start to think about the benefits of the internal living when you're battling with rain and downpours. Another thing just to be aware of is that pools aren't fenced here. So if you've got little children, there's no regulatory requirements around pool fencing. So they're typically never going to come with a fence, and that might be something that you need to think about organising the installation of yourself. And sometimes, or every now and again, you'll see a pool fence on Facebook, for example, that you can just kind of dismantle and put into your property for the duration of time that you're there. Similarly to the fact that you've got so many different styles, there's budgets right across the board, and prices are pretty good at the minute. If you want a basic kind of 2-bedroom property, you can find them for about 10 million a month, and that's kind of typically your 2 bedrooms with a pool, and then there's everything right up to the other end of the scale as well. You're probably realising by now that payments are typically in advance, so it's not unusual to be asked for 12 months payment or 6. Sometimes longer depending on the length of your lease, but normally that has to be paid in advance. It's actually not unusual though to request that you're able to stay and just give it a bit of a trial for a night or a week, or just do a monthly payment just to see how it actually feels once you're in. And I guess similarly, we always say to people, don't buy off the plan, and don't buy off a video call either. Always try and see the house, because what those video calls won't show you is the rubbish being burnt next door, or the pig farm that's down the street that wafts over, or the rain that comes into the leaking roof. So always really wise move, I think, to actually go and check out the property yourself. There's never any guarantees here, and it's interestingly there's no legal protections for us either, so you need to be really wise to that. And if there are legal protections, they're very limited, and generally they don't favour expats either. So just be aware that if you get yourself into a property, you've paid 12 months in advance, for example, and you find out that it's not quite what you thought it was going to be, your likelihood of getting a refund is almost next to nil. So just be really, really careful as to what you're buying. Make sure that you get some recommendations. What else can I tell you? Just be aware that options to sublease here, there's not really options to sublease. You will see lots of expats subleasing properties. You need to be careful of that as a buyer, and it's not a strategy that you can be using to rent or recover money for your property either. One of the things with Bali is that there's like any country, there's rules and there's regulations, and people will work within them to the extent that they feel comfortable. It's probably a country where the policing and the regulation of the law is a little bit more lax, so people tend to get away with a little bit more. So my approach is, okay, well, I'll tell you what the rules are, and then whatever risks that you choose to take within that are totally up to you. So subleasing is definitely an area where that happens a lot. By the letter of the law, you need to be licensed, you need to have a company operating in that, and it's not really open to foreigners. So just keep that in mind, that if you're thinking, okay, I'm going to recover some of my lease cost by subleasing, make sure you get a notary involved who can explain all of that to you in advance. Just trying to pick out, because I can talk about this stuff for hours on end, I'm just trying to pick out the things that are really important. Do you have questions? That might be a better way of approaching it. Is there anything that you kind of come across that you're wondering about at this point? And happy for any of us can answer any questions that you have, I'm sure. Yeah? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Hopefully not at 2 o'clock in the morning, which is a big risk with that. Yeah. Yeah, so the electricity in properties here, there's two systems. There's what's called a PDAM system, which is your payment like on an account, which most of us are used to in the world, but they also use a credit system, which means that a certain amount of credit is put onto the electricity meter, and when it runs out, everything switches off. You can actually monitor that to some extent by having a look at your electricity meter, and just for a couple of days, just keep an eye on how many watts you're using, how many kilowatts you're using, and you'll get a sense as to, okay, at what point does it actually start beeping and at what point does it cut out? So depending on your lease arrangements with your landlord, you may have electricity included or it's not included. If it's included, it's just a matter of finding your landlord. They tend to get a little bit sensitive if you're running air conditioners all the time and they weren't expecting that, for example. So it might be something that you have to negotiate with them in respect of your usage. But if you're covering your own electricity costs, then what you need to do is find out the account number and the phone number that it's attached to from your landlord, and you can go and pay that. I think it's at the the Alpha Marts, I think is still where you pay those.
Meter number actually.
Okay.
That's all you need. The number on the meter itself, and you can go to any convenience store, any convenience store really, and buy credit. And it'll have a token number that you'll punch in, and then you hit that enter button. And the beeping is it telling you that it's about to run out.
Yeah. So electricity use varies from household to household. Some of them, some of us would pay like the equivalent of $100 a month. Others would pay hundreds and hundreds of dollars a month. The thing that is going to impact that is your pool. Keep an eye on that. How often your filter's coming on. Your air conditioners are going to chew it as well. And there's also an industrial kind of size meter here, where the electricity per watt cost is higher than a normal household kind of monitoring. So if you're house hunting now, it's certainly a really good question to ask, what are the expected kind of costs, or what were the last family paying, for example?
So it's on credits?
Yes. Yeah, so it's tick, 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 tick. Yes, like your mobile phone. Yeah.
You don't have any data.
Correct.
You can also buy online. If you have a local bank account, you can buy online on mobile. Okay.
There are two systems actually. The prepayment is also available. So it depends on the setting at your house.
Yeah. It's really helpful actually when you're house hunting also to talk about issues like what happens if, and I'm thinking about things like earthquake damage, and which rarely happens, but sometimes you'll get a fine line crack. Houses in Indonesia are not built to the same standards and nor are they built with the same materials as what we're used to. So it's not unusual to have a leaking roof or a crack in the wall. So make sure your agreement or your contract kind of spells out what am I actually responsible for and what is the landlord responsible for. And typically they're only responsible for structural damage. Everything else is your responsibility. So if you want, if the wall needs painting, you do it. If you need to fix something, you do it. Thank you. So just keep that in mind that, when you look around a beautiful property, that, that gorgeous Alang-a-lang roof might not be looking so attractive when you have to repair it every wet season. Yeah. Yes, you can. Yeah.
Just to say also, you might find that you look around something that isn't quite finished just yet, and actually the landlords are often very open to saying, well, actually, I'd rather this was there, or could you please put AC in, or why is this room not got a fan?
Mindfulness. Can we silent for a while? Mindfulness. I think that was the last one.
Sorry.
Yes.
I didn't hear the first one. Anyway, so I just wanted to flag that because we took on a 3-year lease on a joglo that wasn't quite finished, and he was really open. Some things they will just tweak and put in for you. Other things you might have to make a contribution. But it can be quite a nice way to go into something and make a little bit of your own mark. But I can't stress enough what Karen said about the contract, because they will try and squeeze quite a little out of you sometimes. So just make sure you're really straight on who's responsible for what. We have learned.
And the reality is, even if you do have an agreement where the landlord has said, yes, I'll be responsible for that, if something were to happen, that agreement relies on them having the cash to fix it, you know. So at some point we kind of have those conversations, what's fair and reasonable, who's in what position at this point in time. If I pay for that, maybe you can offer me another month on the lease, because even though it's your responsibility. So that kind of negotiation is perfectly okay. But just make sure that, like what Catherine was talking about, that you do that before you move in. Okay, so and that you do it before you pay, because once you've handed over the money and once you've moved it in, those repairs or you know, that construction or the building out the back that you were told was going to be erected may take a little bit longer than what you thought or what you had originally intended. It's really worthwhile getting a notary involved, even if the landlord says no, you know, we don't need a notary. There'll be many properties that are leased on a handshake agreement, but at the end of the day, you have only the protections of a handshake agreement, and it's not going to be in your favour if you do that. Notaries here they kind of act for both parties, so it's not like for me in Australia, I'd go and get a solicitor, and then the seller would go and get a solicitor, and I'd have somebody acting in my best interest. They kind of work for both parties. So that's something that you just have to keep a little bit of an eye on as well, and seek some guidance and some help from the community on, you know, what's wise to have in those contracts. There's a wealth of information and experience, and we learn from mistakes on that one for sure.
What if we wanted to have, like, start with some more shorter term, just for a few months? Is that, like, I know
Yeah.
that property Bali doesn't do that.
Mm-hmm.
They only put you for rent.
Mm-hmm.
We are looking on long-term rent and Airbnb. Are there any other avenues if we were to?
There's loads of Facebook groups for that. I think I'd be a little bit cautious, to be honest, of any agency saying a strict no policy on kind of trials or short-term arrangements. So I think that would just make me a little wary. I'm not sure what others would think about that. You know, if there's nothing to hide, there shouldn't be a problem with you going in for a month whilst you organise the contract, etc. And, you know, maybe that's a good way of explaining it. I need to get a notary involved. I've got to transfer money in. Yeah, it kind of comes down to negotiation. But loads of Facebook groups on that. The community, we have our own Green School Facebook group as well. There's countless WhatsApp groups that you can throw a call out to. And probably not so much now, but for other families on the recording, if we utilise this later, there's always families travelling. So that, you know, that's a good time to either house sit or find somebody who just, you know, needs their pets looked after for that period, and often that can be a good transition time for families that are coming in. Airbnb use the option for long term. I'm not sure if you're aware of that. Okay, yeah. Any other really standout questions on housing? Anything? No?
What would you, if like a 3 to 4 bedroom villa around Inchmere, what would you say that?
Oh, wow. It's such an open question. Such an open question. It depends what's included. You know, whether or not you've got staff included, the standard of the place.
Maybe
Yeah.
starting from or something?
Sorry?
Maybe the starting from.
Canggu, yeah, look, I think you'd be, if you were looking under 20 million a month, I think you'd be quite lucky in Canggu at the minute. I mean, I know of families that have paid $100-something thousand a year for a beautiful property with 10 staff and whatever. I know other families live in like local areas around here, and they'll pay 65 million for an annual rental because it's it doesn't have a pool or it's a local property. So there's anything in between. It is worthwhile looking like at on a 12-month arrangement. Normally you get kind of a 13th month is the discount on a 12-month upfront. Prices are a little different though now to normal times, and I think what you'll probably find at the minute is that many of the local owners are kind of thinking, okay, the market's going to pick up soon, so I don't want to lease my property to you at a COVID rate, knowing that the government's going to open up Bali, and that's what they've been thinking now for 2 years. The government's going to open up Bali next month, and I'm going to be able to rent it out for triple basically what you're getting it at. So there's a really good argument argument for trying to find something longer term now at a COVID price if you can get it, because if you're only on a monthly arrangement or a short-term arrangement, that's the option for the landlord to change the agreement at the end of the month, and you might find that the property that you're currently paying 20 million a month for is suddenly shot up to 50 million a month without notice. The COVID's kind of upset the market a little bit. There's certainly COVID prices to be had, and I think that there's a lot of reductions at the minute, but we have started to see them creep up, I think. Definitely. Staffing, it's kind of linked topic. Linked in some ways because your housing agreement may or may not include staff. So I kind of need to cover both arrangements. Before I actually launch into that, I will just say, like, whether or not you choose to have staff is a very personal decision. There's different schools of thought on it, and we have families in the community who steadfastly say, we don't have staff, we don't intend to have staff at all. That's not what we want for our living arrangement. And then, we've got families that are in villas, obviously, that are very fully staffed as well. If staff are included, normally you don't have too much control over the hiring and firing, to put it crudely. Normally those staff kind of stay with the house. They're employed by the landlord, and even if you had difficulties or issues, you probably find it very difficult to find a new pembantu, for example. So that's one thing that you do need to consider with your housing as well. Maybe have a chat to the staff if they come with the property, and make sure that you feel comfortable with those people. They're in your house 24 hours a day. Some of them, if you've got security guards or live-in staff as well, so you need to feel comfortable with the people that are there. So it's not unusual to ask to meet them, and that's kind of part of your process. But like I say, you have very little ability in that arrangement to decide that person doesn't suit your family environment, or their approach to parenting your children is a little bit different to yours. So you might find that employing your own staff is a preferred arrangement. And when I talk about staff, I'm talking about pembantus, which is normally your household help, so cleaning or cooking. Security is sometimes engaged. Gardeners, definitely. People to help with the pool maintenance. So you might end up with 4 or 5 staff coming through your house, sometimes on a daily basis. They might be employed full-time. It could be part-time arrangements, could be a couple of days a week. One thing I do always advise, though, is that all of the locals here have an identity card, and it's not, or it would be wise just to take a copy of the identity card of anybody that's in your house. I think we tend to be very trusting when we come to Bali because the people are lovely, and we all have great experiences. But at the end of the day, we're a community, no different to no matter where we live in the world, and these people are inside our homes, so we have to think about issues like security as well. So just grab a copy of their identity card and keep that on your records. Staff are paid monthly, so normally on the first of the month, unless you negotiate, and anything comes down to negotiation with them. One of the challenges in Bali is that household staff are not regulated, and actually that's the case right throughout Indonesia. It's not a regulated profession. The only time it becomes regulated is that if you personally have a company and you're employing that person in your home or through your company, then there's regulations. But outside of that, it's a known, like the International Labour Organisation, there's a lot of research on how people are disadvantaged because of that lack of regulation. Notwithstanding that, though, we do, as expats and certainly as Green School community, we do try and honour the minimum obligations that we would have to honour if we're a company. And that's just about ensuring that, human rights and making sure that people are paid and rewarded for the work that they're doing in our properties. So what that entails is a salary, and as I say, normally that's paid monthly. You will need to ask the community, kind of for comparisons on what people are paying. There is a minimum salary in Bali. It's 2.9 million. But it also varies depending on the regency, the map that I had up before. So at absolute minimum for a full-timer who's in your house 40 hours a week, so that's either 5 days a week or 6 days a week, depending on how many hours a day, there is a minimum salary. please keep in mind, it's 2.9 million is the Bali minimum, but there's differences for each regency. So if you're in Canggu, for example, it could be 3.1. Keep in mind that's a minimum wage, and the idea, think about the minimum wage in our own country. What that's designed for is to get somebody off the poverty line, basically. It's not designed to support a family. It's not designed to be an amount of money that rewards a person for a job that they're doing. It's just it's a baseline. So what we do is, kind of suggest to people that pay what you feel people are worth without overpaying as well. We don't necessarily want to have problems at the other end of the scale. I think we need to be quite cautious as a community and also as expats that we don't artificially manipulate an economy, and by that I mean, if we start doubling salaries, it creates expectations, it changes people's positions in communities, it creates it becomes problematic, and we think that we're being quite generous by doubling somebody's salary, but it's not necessarily, there's unintended consequences of doing things like that. Having said that, reward the staff, value them for the contribution that they make to your family, and keep in mind that many of them do live on the poverty line. So, they appreciate things that are excess to us, for example, or, offering them to pay for their lunch, for example, or providing cooking facilities so that they can make their own lunch while they're working for you. All of those little things are just some value adds that are beneficial. There's a 13th month that you have to pay. There is one bonus that has to be done every year, so factor that into your thinking as well. The regulation is that that's paid annually on, it's normally Idul Fitri because of the major religious holiday, paid once a year. But in Bali, the religious holiday, because we're Hindu, is more on Nyepi. Then there's an option to negotiate that, okay, instead of Nyepi, let's do it half and half on Galungan. So it really becomes a conversation with each individual staff member. Find out what religion they are, when they need that money, and and how they would like it to be paid. So don't make assumptions, I guess, on their behalf, but it is an obligation that they receive that bonus.
There is a number of big bank holidays, religious holidays.
Correct.
Quite a number of them.
Yep, correct. There's
I just assumed that would be just imperative they would have that day.
correct, yeah. So there's actually a calendar that you can get. Sorry, I'm very conscious of the time. I'm conscious of the fact that I talk a million miles an hour as well. So I'll try. And she's eyeballing me. So really quickly, yes, there's 20 nominated what they call red days. Indonesia has like 4 Christian holidays, 4 Muslim holidays, 4 Hindu holidays, and what many staff will do is kind of negotiate. Some of them don't expect it. Many don't expect it at all, because, as I said before, that kind of comes with a contractual arrangement that they don't necessarily have. So even just offering to give them the red days, they'll think, many will think that's wonderful. But you can also have those conversations with them around, okay, well, do you need the Muslim holiday? Would you prefer to have it on a Hindu holiday? But it's always easier, just as a guiding rule, to have those conversations before people start. What are your expectations about this? So that's definitely one I would bring up. Any other burning questions about staff? I might hand over. Like I say, it's one of those topics that we could talk to the cows come home about. There's a lot to learn and a lot of information to give. And if you have further questions, I'm around for a little while after the session, and any of us can answer questions on any topic. Thank you.
Is this on? Hello? Do we need it? Is it on? Hello. All right. Can I just add a couple quick notes to that? Culturally, when you do end up in a house, for sure, arrange a ceremony. Yes. It's amazing. And Ibadar, we'll maybe get into some detail about that. On a more sensitive note, there's in terms of your staff and in terms of people in general, there's a very significant difference culturally in how one might express displeasure with service, perhaps here, and the sort of the gist is to tread lightly. It's not how you might do it, or people might do it from where you're from. And so, if an issue ever arises, I would highly recommend just reaching out to some of the community to ask about how one might address that situation. I'll just say it in a general sense like that. But for sure, if an issue comes up, don't try and do it in what you might think would be a normal way. There's just a sensitivity level that's different here. So I'll just be vague about that, and then you can ask questions as we go. But we talk about transportation, which is an interesting one here. So scooters and cars are basically the way you're going to go. You can rent scooters, you can buy scooters. Renting is probably the way to start. There's plenty of places to rent. The WhatsApp chats are the lifeline for all this information. Price range probably to rent a scooter is from $850 a month for a Scoopy, right on up to Juta or something for one of the big NMAXs or PCXs or something like that. And then the rules of the road are something you sort of have to learn as you go, because there's not many. And it's really about watching and watching and watching.
And extra careful.
And so absolutely extra careful, but just watch how it happens, because it doesn't make sense at first and eventually it does. And also watch that nobody's got any emotion about it. So it's just a flow. And then just go slowly, and eventually, if you choose to ride a scooter, you'll get it, and it's an amazing way to move about. A driver in a car, I think, is invaluable, especially when you first get here. It doesn't have to be a permanent solution. You'll learn more from your driver than I think any source in Bali, about the language, about the custom, about the color. You can look out the window and just say, what is that, what is that, what is that, what does that mean? And you'll learn tons and tons and tons. A rate for a car and a driver right now, I would say, is probably 7 or 8 juta a month, and that would be maybe 4 for a car, 3 for a driver, in that ballpark. And that's sort of a basic rate, and if there's after hours, again, you can reach out for more specific information. Driver's license. If you don't have, hopefully you'll have an international driver's license with you. You should have something with you at all when you're driving. Hopefully at least an international driver's license from where you're from. And then when you get here, you can eventually get a driver's license for a scooter or for a car. Again, that's something I think Ganesha can help arrange those. People, and we've all had them, so people here can help. And the thing to check really is your insurance from home and what they want you to have. Helmets, driver's license, this and that. That's all going to vary from company and from country. We all recommend for sure that you get a driver's license. We recommend you wear a helmet. It is the rule here to wear a helmet, and sometimes you will get pulled over if you're not wearing one. And if you don't have a driver's license, you'll get a fine for both. What else?
Varies.
Well, it's if you're at the corner of Barawa and Raya Canggu, it's very organized. They have actually a laminated little bit of a mini folder, and they kind of look it up and they say, Bule no helmet, 250,000, Bule no license. Every scooter will have some papers that come with it. They're called stink papers. It's a little laminated envelope that'll just sit underneath your seat. Sometimes they'll want to see that. But usually they're going to ask for helmet, and currently mask also when you're on your scooter, and a driver's license. What else? Any questions about transportation?
Bayou bus?
Yeah, there's actually amazing instructors here who will do scooter lessons. They'll do car lessons. A lot of the teenagers are currently going through some of these lessons now, and they'll be 6 weeks or 3 months long, and they'll actually go through that process and then help you get a driver's license at the end of it. So there's people who will do that.
But if you have a driver's license, you
A driver's,
International.
yeah.
Yeah, driving here is like driving in another universe.
It is, and then eventually it'll click, and you'll see it. You'll see the flow, and you'll release the claim to logic that you brought with you about why is he parking here, or why are they on my side of the road, all those things. and again, it helps that you realize no one's carrying any baggage, as it were.
Would you recommend us to take lessons, or should we?
I would just watch,
Okay.
just watch for a while. Just look out the window and watch, and just eventually it'll click into place.
People are slowing down to let me out.
Eventually,
Yeah.
my motto for crossing an intersection used to be, "This is happening," and I would just slowly roll out, and they would just stop and be like, "Yeah, you gotta go." So,
And our scooter instructors of my ex-wife, he said a good thing for us Europeans, don't look in the rearview mirror. Everything happens in front. That's where you need to look. Use your blinker, and everybody will respect that.
yeah,
Something like
yeah, you're pretty much only responsible for what's in front of you.
Yep.
So,
Yeah,
I
but
already had two people bumping into me in the back, and I was like, okay, bye.
yes, that's true. But I'd like to add some points because this is also happen. I think this also will be good when you look at the mirror when you have. I mean, like when you would like to turn. For example, this is a road. Yes, when you stop and turn, sometimes when people in rush, and even we put our sign that we're gonna turn right, they could hit us. So that's an advantage also when we're looking at that. Don't ignore the mirror at all. Yes.
So if you rent a car,
Yeah.
don't rent a big car.
Yeah, just be careful.
one that has a
Just be
mirror.
careful and slowly, especially when we're still watching and something. I think, yeah, we can talk about biobus maybe, Dave?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
yeah.
One thing on the license for teenagers. How old is the minimum age? What's the minimum age?
17.
17.
Yeah.
Thanks. Cool.
So a lot of them will start their lessons, I think, right before they turn 17, and then right as they're getting to 17, they can get their license. What's that? Yeah, I think it probably depends on the instructor, and it's been pretty fun. A group of the boys are taking lessons now, and they go into Denpasar, and then what they'll do sometimes is they actually do a bit of charity work. They'll buy some T-shirts or something and take them to the orphanage, and that'll be their driving mission for the day. So it's kind of a cool thing, cultural fun thing. Yeah.
I need a number for a driver lesson.
Yeah, we can do that for sure. And then another option, I guess, for getting your kids to school is the biobus, which it's funny. It was sort of off my radar because it's been not available for the last little while. But so there's 2 stops in the Canggu, Peronon area, and I don't think there's anything to Sonora right now anymore, right? But that's an amazing thing. It's fun for the kids. It's easy to get to. Usually the bus stops become a social hub as well, where you'll meet the people and you learn all sorts of things there as well. Any of the things where you can meet people, yoga class, food kitchen, any of those things, and just start meeting everybody. You'll learn very fast. A lot of this is drinking from the fire hose. So if you don't retain it all, don't worry about it. Just the WhatsApp groups are the way to go.
We use the biobus and we love it. I am not keen to schlep to school and back myself as a parent every day, so to me it's extremely wonderful that they go off and come back home. That's how we live also in San Francisco, where this is not on, I don't think. Or maybe. But also it's an incredibly cool operation, like started by green school students formerly who figured out how to get bio fuel from cooking. And I'm not going to say this as well as Kate, but it's like a closed loop system, very environmentally friendly, and a really cool project to support. So, and it's not currently full. So put your kids on the biobus if you live near the stop. It's been great for us. Oh yeah.
You can find the information about how to book the biobus at the newsletter.
Can I suggest, if you've got a driver and they're relatively new to you, jump in the car with them just to ensure the driving styles, and often a lot of them I find don't enforce seatbelts, or you'll see them stopping off and stocking up the kids with snacks at the Alphamart on the way home, and kids are jumping around in the back of the cars and that kind of stuff. So I think it is important just to have that initial conversation about, you need to slow down, or conversely, you're taking 45 minutes to get to school and it should take 15. So just know what you're dealing with, I guess, and who your kids are in the car with.
Is this working? Yes. Hi everyone, lovely to see you. I'm Sally. I've been coming back and forth to Bali for, oh my goodness, I'm going to tell my age now, 25, 30 years from Australia. My husband actually proposed to me on Jimbaran Bay, believe it or not, all those years ago. So I'm talking about well-being and sustainability. So in all those years back and forth, we've lived here on and off in that time. I probably had just about everything you can catch in Bali except dengue. Keep my fingers crossed on that one. But I'm going to let Meg talk about all the medical stuff. I'm going to come in from more of a preventative perspective, which is I have a holistic background in health, so that's kind of my expertise. So I just want to give you guys a few little tips and tricks for living here in a more of a preventative state of mind, if you can. One of the biggest things, this is sort of goes for anywhere around the world that you live, but it's even more important in Bali, is the hydration aspect. I think we underestimate the impact of the heat, particularly if we've come from a cold country, and the adaptation process that takes for our body. So number one thing is to stay hydrated with water, and that can include a little bit of salted sort of water, like if you're having those kind of rehydration type drinks. Make sure you have an adequate amount of salt in your diet. It's something that we don't really think about, but with the heat and the level of perspiration, speaking for myself here, it's really important to stay on top of that one. The second most important thing I would suggest is make sure you get adequate rest. I think it's something we really underestimate, that the heat takes it out of you. And there's all kinds of weird and wonderful little tropical bugs that fly around here, and it takes a while for our system to just get used to that. It's a different pace of life here. We don't have to rush around like crazy overachieving Westerners. That I think that we're all quite good at that. This is a really fantastic opportunity to do things a little bit differently in Bali. And for me, it took me a long time when I first lived here to unwind and to slow down and to start to notice what was around and appreciate what was here. And once I did that, I stepped into a flow of life, and things were different. And I no longer got sick all the time. I no longer got tummy bugs. And it was really more a state of mind than it was anything else. But there is this period of adjustment. So be really kind to yourselves. Be really gentle. If you feel really tired one day, go and lie down. It's okay. So that's probably the number two important note on the well-being side of things. Food, we all have our own likes and dislikes and things that we love to do. Generally, trying new foods is exciting and fantastic, and I would encourage it, but I will also say, and this is not really a pun, trust your gut on the food that you're going. It's the same thing. It takes a little bit of adjustment and adaptation for your system when you're coming into a new country. So really tune in and start to really listen to what your body's telling you with some of those things. It's great. We eat local food, but it took us a while to adapt to do that. We've had all kinds of things. I've had typhoid twice, which isn't fun, so I don't advise getting typhoid if you can, but there are treatments for typhoid. I think I might let you talk about that, Meg. One time I went down the medical path, and another time I used a holistic essential oils. Both ways have worked for me. So there's not one rule or another. I think it's really very much in Bali, you do what works for you and for your family on a lot of these sort of holistic things. You'll find here there's every, alternative therapy. Some of them are amazing. and some of them aren't quite so amazing. So same thing, you need to just sift through what is available and work out what's going to work for you. So that's all I'm really going to touch on the nutrition front. There are some really fantastic suppliers of different food options here, depending on if you're in Ubud or Canggu. You may have come across various different suppliers. We've got Alive Whole Foods, we have Bali Buddha, we have Zero Waste. They're the main three. Have I missed? Oh, Bali Direct, sorry, yes, and Bali Direct is in Preranan. They're the main, I suppose, grocery type stores other than the major supermarkets that will supply more Western style foods. They'll also supply loose foods, so you can take your own containers or just take home in paper bags. So it's a little bit more environmental and sustainable. And there are companies that deliver. So, I mean, pretty much you can get everything via GoShop or Gojek here. But there are also companies that will deliver. Bali Direct is fantastic. There's also fruit and veg deliveries here that you may not know about. There's a company started by a green school family, Island Organics, and they're amazing. So you can order off the internet, just Google them. They'll deliver you. There's a weekly box that they do, and it comes with all kinds of beautiful fruit and veg, and then you can just adapt your menu. If you have staff, you can let them know maybe your menu or the meals that you want them to cook, or you can cook yourself, whatever you choose to do. There's also another new company that's been around for about a year called Vivre Gourmet. Apologies for my French accent if I didn't say that properly, but they arose out of one of the 5-star hotels going bust during COVID, and the chef has created this fantastic company that delivers very home-cooked type of meals. So if you're craving a chicken dinner or hot cross buns or something, you know, that's particular for your family, they have a fantastic range of meals, all kinds of frozen things, all freshly cooked, and they'll deliver everything on the back of the motorbike. So that's the food side of things. In terms of sustainability, we really encourage everyone to... Oh, good ham, yeah. Yeah, they had a great Christmas menu. In terms of recycling and waste, I'd encourage people to check out Eco Bali if you're living in the Canggu area. They provide a recycling service and come and collect weekly, so that's a really great offering. Composting is available. Kambali here at the school offers a really great composting system with buckets that you can purchase and use. And anything on the waste front I've forgotten? Compost, just done that.
Good morning.
She was saying Urban Compost is a company that does that in
Oh, Urban Compost, sorry, yes. Urban Compost. Yeah, Urban Compost is amazing, actually. They have this amazing setup. And if you ever go to their headquarters, you can see the farm system that they have. It's pretty cool. What else do I want to add? One really great thing that I would suggest in terms of the adaptation process for your tummy is to have colloidal silver in your cupboard. It's a really old-fashioned remedy. We've used it for years ourselves, and it's a very great preventative. It's got tiny little microscopic particles of silver, which is a really, really traditional old-fashioned remedy for all kinds of antibacterial, antiviral things. So that's available at Alive, Whole Foods, Bali Buddha. I did notice Alive has just opened in Umalas, if anybody's looking at Umalas too now. So that's one for the cupboard. Mosquito bites we treat with lavender oil or lemongrass, and there's plenty of repellent around. I would strongly suggest using mosquito repellent whenever you go out at night, particularly in a jungly area. And up to you whether you use the chemical one or the natural one. Any questions while we're on whole things? No? Fantastic. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Sally. My name's Meg. I am an internal medicine doctor at UCSF in my real life when I'm not here. But I am doing a 2-year integrative medicine fellowship, so I'm very interested. We'll have to talk because I'm very interested in and using, non-traditional, or actually traditional, but sort of non-conventional medical treatments also. But to cover some medical issues that will probably come up for you, I've only been here since October, so I'm new to Bali, but not new to being a doctor. Many things have come up already that I wish I had known, and actually many of them are in the Living in Bali guide, which I reread, in preparation for today, and was like, I should have read this more carefully when I arrived. So do read it. There is good detail in there, but it is kind of like overwhelming amount of information, and none of it really stuck for me until I was needing to know what to do right away. So lice is widespread at the Green School. So you will need to be paying attention to your children's hair. So I was advised when I first got here from another mom to do like a thorough check every week. I had previously had zero experience looking for lice in my children's hair. I have a 10-year-old and a 6-year-old girl with shoulder-length hair. I didn't know anything about it. I bought a comb from Putu here. So buy a lice comb. You must have a lice comb, and it's not just a regular fine-tooth comb. It's a specifically lice comb. So I was doing my weekly lice checks, then, found one positive eventually, and then learned a whole lot in a hurry about what you actually then do. So definitely check your kids. I don't think weekly is probably the Bali guide says daily. Daily's a lot if your kids have a lot of hair like mine do. I think a weekly very thorough check, and then maybe a quicker one every day, or if you get a WhatsApp from your class, from anyone in your class that someone has it, you might be sure to check. But essentially you're combing through every inch of their hair and sectioning it so that you keep track of it. I needed to buy clips to put the hair into sections, which I hadn't done. So clips and a lice comb, and then just comb it through. There is professional help available, especially near Canggu, called Mod Love, which is like a Green School hangout on the weekends or during the week. So that, then they'll comb it through for you, and, you'll have the reassurance that someone more experienced than you is doing it. Although I think knits still get missed, and so you got to keep checking even after they've been to Mod Love.
And I wonder, do they then completely sterilize the whole place before they go to another kid?
Right.
Are they trained?
So I learned, so lice can't jump, so that's helpful. They can only crawl, and they're not really very good at it because really they just want to stay. They can only get from kid to kid if their hair touches. So have your kids put their hair up is better than down. Braided is really great too because it's sort of contained. That really helps. I was really reassured to learn that they can't jump, so they can't jump on you when you're putting your kid to bed, so my new bedtime is sort of more of a lean than the full snuggle that was not factoring in lice. So, I think it's kind of one of those, it's inevitable, and unfortunately it's a new life skill you're going to have as a parent. For me, I've had to just accept that as a new way I spend an hour of my day on Sundays, and spot checks now more. So there's oil, I think, is questionably suffocating them, but it's probably helping. People here, because it's so ubiquitous, often just put coconut oil in the hair, maybe have the kids sleep in it in a shower cap, or just let it get the sheets dirty, and that might suffocate the lice, and the nits might be less likely to hatch, but I think that's not very fail-safe. The lice can, because you can swim, you can shower, they're not bothered. They manage without, fresh air for quite some time. Okay. Combing, yeah. You just have to comb, right. You just have to comb them out. You learn quickly what they look like. YouTube was a godsend for me. Just what's the right way to comb and section hair, and what do they look like? So it's all there. I won't spend too much more time on it, but just you can't kind of hope it won't come up, it's gonna come up. So any other questions or?
Just watch your kid. If your kid start,
Yeah.
it's a sign.
If they're itching, they definitely probably already
That's a
have it.
sign.
But sometimes they don't notice it, and so it can already have, taken hold before they itch. So you can't really rely on itching. You got to check. Catherine, how often do you think we should be checking? Like, what's the responsible thing as parents? I'm not sure if, like, weekly, it's... Yeah, it's more common in the back. They're usually at the nape of the neck and behind the ears. Yeah. Yeah, it's a tricky one. So washing hair, so it's not at all a sign of being unclean or not having good hygiene. They don't care about clean versus dirty hair. So it's not, no one's doing anything wrong, or it's not, no one should feel ashamed. It's not a hygiene factor at all. They're just looking for new heads. Yeah, yeah. Another one that comes up a lot is ear infections from all the swimming, both in the ocean and pools. So getting ahead on that, prevention is where the money's at for that. So you just should use drops that help dry out moisture that remains in the ear. So I just made these myself. It's just 1-to-1 vinegar and any kind of rubbing alcohol or isopropyl alcohol. So I just bought, vinegar plus the alcohol at the store, a dropper bottle, and it just sits on our counter. And the girls are supposed, and my husband and I too, just put a little bit so you feel it in your canal, and then shake it out. It doesn't have to be there that long. Same with the other side. That will prevent most swimmers' ear. And once swimmer's ear takes hold, it's not like it's immediately going to become an infection, but there'll be ear pain that kids will get. It's called swimmer's ear, and that's just otitis externa. That's just the canals irritated. So that's common. Then you can just buy some drops. You can just go to the pharmacy and say, my kid has swimmer's ear, and they'll give you some drops. Otopain is one brand, but you can get that just by asking the pharmacy basically for a sore ear or swimmer's ear. But if it keeps hurting after that, or there's fever or severe pain, then it's probably deeper. It's called otitis media. And that point, a doctor should look with an otoscope to see how the actual tympanic membrane looks. And if it's looking bulging or infected, then they'll probably recommend some antibiotics. But it doesn't need to get to that. Like, if you can keep ahead of that one with the vinegar and rubbing alcohol, and next step, the otopain, you should probably, hopefully not get down the road to the the middle ear being infected. So any questions or pointers or other hacks from a... Oh, yeah, sure. Oh, no, but anything else on the ears? Oh, yeah, I have more topics, but...
Just on the ears, I'd say the colloidal silver, it's just been my go-to for everything. I've actually dropped that into my kids' ears over the years, and it just seems to dissipate if it's just the early stages of some sort of ear thing going on.
Okay, I didn't know. I'm excited to learn
about
colloidal
silver. For me,
okay, great.
Anecdotal, but
nice. So maybe a less sort of ho-hum, a little bit up the ante in terms of the risk. So dengue. Sally, I'm so happy you haven't had it. It unfortunately, it is something that we have to be aware of in Bali. So it's a mosquito-borne illness, and it is present in Bali. And so the main thing there is, of course, just prevent mosquito bites. There's not a specific treatment for dengue other than supportive care as your body sort of fights it off. There are some intriguing and I think useful herbal remedies that maybe we'll just come to at the end, but prevention is the main thing. So mosquito repellent of whatever variety you prefer is definitely, like, it's in my bag, it's on my person at all times. I'm someone who mosquitoes love, so if you're one of those people, you kind of know what I mean, where you're always thinking about what's the mosquito level happening right now. The kids at school, it is an issue. So sending them with some spray in their backpack that they can reapply, because it certainly won't last all day, certainly the natural ones. It's really hot here, of course, but I've been able to get my younger one to wear leggings because it's socially acceptable in grade 1, but it's not socially acceptable in grade 5. Apparently, for my older, she will, wears the shortest possible shorts. She'll love me for saying that. But, so if you can cover your skin and handle the heat, you'll have a lot fewer bites. But a lot of the kids, they're going to wear what they're going to wear. So then it's a matter of repellent. I saw one of you has a little green bottle. Yeah, I don't know if we can put that in I don't know what it's called, but I have it too.
It's called Bakashi Oil.
How do you say it?
Bokassi Oil.
So Bokassi Oil helps soothe the sting and the itch of the bite, and so that's also in my fanny pack that I have everywhere, and I use that a lot. That helps quite a bit. There's evidence and certainly cultural practice here that papaya leaf juice is helpful both in the treatment of dengue, if you do have it, can accelerate the improvement in the platelet count, which can be a problem if you have more severe dengue. But it can also apparently be helpful with prevention. So I drink papaya leaf juice every day. I said, why not? And I got it from Bala Booty. Haven't gotten my kids to yet 'cause it's pretty bitter. But there's also an homeopath here who is very well regarded and revered as being a really excellent homeopathic doctor. And he has dengue prevention treatment that you can do, which I also did, even as, a traditionally trained, conventionally trained Western doctor. I am all for things I can do, to reduce my risk of illness when there isn't, another treatment that you can use to stave off dengue. So if you're interested in those, that's actually also in the Living in Bali guide. I'm forgetting the name of the clinic, Chokede and Tinta Ursada, or the clinic. Anyway, I'm saying that wrong. And so, yeah, that's the mosquito. 3 minutes? Okay. Snakes. I would say quickly for snakes, you probably will encounter snakes. They are very unlikely to want to come anywhere near you or bite you unless you step on them because you didn't see them. So it's not really something I don't think to be so scared of. I was very unaware and kind of had like a total freak out of a snake in my house, and I learned everything later. So read the snake prevention and snake bite guide from Ron Lilly. And if that's not provided to you, message me or the bridge and we can get that to you. It's got a ton of helpful information. But mainly just be aware that if you have good lighting and you look where you're going at night, and don't step on a snake, they're unlikely to come wanting to get you. If you have one in your house or your villa, you can call, you take pictures, send them to Ron Lilly, and put them on the Snakes in Bali Facebook group, and you will have that snake identified quickly while you stay more than 6 feet away and just watch it. You might watch it, slither off and go away, or you might watch it and so you know exactly where it is, and then someone will come. You can arrange someone to come take the snake for you and take it out to fields far away. So that sounds maybe daunting. Now I feel like, oh, that's something I have done and I can do. That's he just rode off with it in a scooter in a red bag, but I didn't know at the time, and so I wish I had read the Living in Bali guide better on that front. Karen's laughing because, yeah, well, that's another story I won't put on video. Let's see, I think one other one that I wanted to cover. Well, Karen was reminding me, just to remind you, there is not like a 911, call an ambulance. In almost all cases, I guess all cases, the best course is just to drive yourself to the nearest hospital if it's an emergency, or to the hospital of your choosing if it's not as much of an emergency. On the snake front, the snake guide helps you put a few numbers in your contacts. Like there's a doctor who's the most experienced in snake bites in Bali, so she's in my contacts. Hope I don't need her. Also, the closest hospital that has ICU and ventilators is now in my phone, plus the bigger hospital in Denpasar. So in Ron's guide for what to do with a snake bite, it sort of gives you these contacts. Put them in your phone, just put in WhatsApp, and then search snake if it happens, and then you know what to do. But in general, yes, you need to get yourself to the healthcare that you're seeking. One last quick thing is just other insects. There are venomous caterpillars, scorpions, and this thing called a tomcat beetle, which I haven't seen yet, but is orange and black. None of those those venoms can't be fatal, but they can give you a blistering rash for many days to weeks. So don't mess with centipedes. So obviously, nobody would mess with a scorpion, but certain caterpillars and centipedes, and then this tomcat beetle. So just don't let your kids get too curious and cutesy about a centipede until you would maybe know what type it was, or a caterpillar, and they can cause a pretty bad blistering rash. Oh, rabies. Yes, thank you. So rabies, whether you chose already to vaccinate your kids for rabies, or you could choose to do so here, is a choice. I generally, I didn't, for what it's worth. I think if you're careful around dogs and try to take measures to avoid a bite or a scratch, my thought is you could probably manage that risk to where that wouldn't be a vaccine I chose to get. But many people did choose to, and so you'd sort of not be quite as concerned about rabies if that happened. If you do get a dog bite, there is the rabies series of shots most likely available here. My understanding is it could maybe be a little tricky to make sure you can get all of them, but should be that you can get the immune globulin and then the antibody series.
And just be like the first aid response for dog bite is just wash it with soapy water for a good 30 minutes. I think the first time we kind of had somebody in my personal network that had happened to, we betadined or antiseptic, and they said no, don't do that. Just soapy water, just continual washing, and then get yourself to a doctor, and the system will take care of you.
That's right, and it's not urgent for rabies. So you want to clean the wound anyway for all types of infection and dirt. It's not a short time frame. It's many days that you have to try to find the rabies treatment. So that one's not a panic. Snake bite is an emergency. Get quickly to the hospital. I think everybody knows that.
Can I just add on the rabies? Sometimes monkeys as well can
Yes.
carry rabies. Not all, but it's quite common to have if you get bitten by a monkey, to have a issue with rabies. So just be aware of that as well. Even lizards, I have heard. I don't know if that's common. Cats or cat. Bats. Bats. Oh God.
Yeah, bats. Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe cats too. Yes. I don't know.
Yeah.
Can
Yes.
cats have rabies? Yeah.
Yes,
so I
they
guess
can.
all animals.
Yeah.
I think it's just, as Meg said, common sense around animals. You tigers, look out for the Bali
Sadly,
tigers.
we don't have any more tigers, right, in Bali? They're gone.
I'm joking.
Yep.
Being around dogs, just as an aside, is if you're not used to that and you haven't grown up in a family with dogs, there's kind of an art to managing your response to Bali dogs. And I genuinely believe that they can sense your fear if you are. If you have a fear of dogs, they're going to pick up on it. The best thing to do is just walk. We had a dog trainer out one day. He said, just make yourself bigger and just walk with confidence. And they're generally just more bark than bite. But obviously, don't approach and don't let the kids kind of approach, particularly dogs without collars or ones that are probably not being looked after. Yeah. But that's a bit scary when especially if you're a runner or a walker, trying to get your head around how to manage that.
There is one trick that if one is really, really aggressive and isn't backing off, is to pretend you're picking up something that you're going to throw. And it's genetic memory. Like, you have never seen any dog on this island. If you bend down and act like you're picking something up, they'll start to take off. So it's a really good trick if you get somewhere and you're not comfortable and you haven't pushed the bravado enough, but that'll work every time.
I usually pick up a small rock if I'm by myself and just hold it. I've never thrown it, but I have it. Makes me feel the bravado is there. Karen's like, you'll stop doing that eventually.
It could be barren like this, and if you bent down, they're not looking at what you're picking up. They're just assuming it's common.
Yeah.
But their bark is usually much worse than their bite. They make an awful lot of noise. And then if you just walk through and literally ignore them, they realize you're no threat to them. So, yeah.
My kids are traumatized by them every day walking to the Bayou. They seem to keep like coming after them. So that's maybe why I have the rock. But, but yeah, it'll bark though, but it just scares them, you know. So I can't.
Have you done a welcoming ceremony onto the island?
Yeah, maybe we need to do another one though. We need to.
I'm not kidding. I have a story about this. I had a dog chased me, literally trying to bite my foot every day. One time I came back to Bali and I had forgotten to do the welcoming ceremony back onto Bali. And I remembered after 2 weeks that I hadn't done this. So off I go, take a few moments to do this very simple little ceremony of almost just acknowledging and gratitude to be here on this beautiful island. And I'm not kidding, that dog stopped chasing me. Never once again did he chase me. I don't know what's in that welcoming ceremony stuff.
We're gonna find out.
If you tell me,
Give
might
me the
want
mic.
to talk
Perfect
about
segue.
that.
So thank you, everyone. I think this is the last panel from me. My name is Darwi. I believe we met some of you at the previous session. I'm a parent here. I'm Balinese. I have 2 kids here at grade 10 and grade 4. I'm also the school secretary, so just contact me if you need anything. So Bali is actually full of culture and tradition. I believe also this might be hard for you, right, to just know what to do or when to do something. So I will just share a bit tips, maybe what you shouldn't do while you're in Bali. So yesterday we share in our immersion culture when we're making the offering and something, yes. So in Bali we believe that the left hand is impure. So when you would like to receive or give something or pointing something, please use your right hand. Just try to avoid your left hand, even if you are left-handed or something. So, and then the other, I'm sorry? Yes, 2 hands is even better, but just avoid to use your left hand only. Yes, and then the next thing is like don't touch someone's head without permission, because we believe that head is our little microcosm in our life, and we believe this is a holy part of our body. So just when you greet somebody in Bali, better put your hand like this, 2 hands together in your chest. Just you can say Om Swastiastu or the greeting. Maybe it's good time for you to learn some greetings in Bali. Like you say in Bahasa, it's also good. Hey, selamat pagi, selamat siang, selamat sore, or something like that. Okay. Any question until that point? No, that makes sense, right? Okay. I have a note. Don't worry. And temples. Maybe you wonder why in Bali there is a lot of temples, right? So we have a system in Bali. In each family, we have family temple. In each village, we have like a main 3 basic territorial temples. That the Pura Pusa, Pura Baliagung, Pura Dalam. So if you count how many villages and how many districts, how many regency in Bali, so that's why our island will be like thousands of temples. So that's why we have so many temples in Bali. And temples is a sacred places. So please be mindful when you would like to enter temple, dress properly, at least wear kamen or sarong, and wear sas, and this is covered like a long sleeve or something. And when you enter a bigger temple, of course you have to ask permission from the local. And we would suggest like if you would be better if you find a guide or a local person accompany you to come, so that he or she will guide you what to do and what not to do there. Because in some, I mean, like we believe also here is in different places, different villages, they have also different custom, different tradition. In some place they could a bit flexible. In some villages they might be a little bit strict or something. So in my village is flexible, please come if you would like to come to my village. It's in Tabanan, okay? And then about the offerings. When you walk around in Bali, you will find a lot of offerings on the island, even on the street, at the car, and at their shop and something. But when you see offering on the floor or in the front of the shop, please avoid to step on it. Just walk around. But you can do some good things there. Maybe you can take a picture and share it at your Instagram, right? Because they're beautiful. So offering here in Bali is like the way how we appreciate God. But we also offer offering to other spirit around us because we believe there is other spirits, not only God or something, but we believe like there is three worlds. Maybe that later on there is another session that we can offer to understand more about Balinese Hindu. Yeah, so we also believe in like what we call Buta Kala. So later on when we have a Nyepi celebration, like the Nyepi, one day before the Nyepi, so the Nyepi Eve, we have a celebration like having a big monster doll or ogoh-ogoh, we call that ogoh-ogoh, that we usually do a parade around our village. We do that around the sunset time. So this one is a symbol how we respect that spirit. Like literally in our normal life, we can say like we feeding them, we made them pleased so that they can also guard us, right? So that makes sense. So that's we would like to live in harmony. So in Bali is yes, no problem. Thank you so much. Yes, yes, yes. Yes, that's the other thing. But the rest is mostly like only about maybe if you do your shopping to the traditional market, I would like to inform you a bit the tradition about the bargaining. So please make sure. I mean, like most of the item usually without price tag. So please make sure yourself if you really want to buy 100% want to buy that things, then you can do the bargain. If not, you can just walk around. Just say to them that, can I look first or something? Yeah, because sometimes they a bit pushing you to buy on something and you feel, oh, actually I don't want to buy or something, and then you start bargaining, but then actually it's not make you happy too, and maybe they're not happy. So just make sure first that you would like to buy that things, then do the bargain. If not, just say that you're looking. Okay? I think that's the thing that I can share, but there is a lot of tips that I can share later on, but because of the timing, if you have any question, please feel free to come to my desk. I'm at the second floor of the heart of the school. And also, my email is also available. You can check later on.
I have lots of questions about Bali. I'd love to have like a conversation with you. Yes, I'd love that.
Yes, no problem. Yes, especially with the Nyepi. Maybe one thing that I would like to share with you, just find as many as information. Maybe you can start now by Googling so that you can understand what you can do, what you cannot do. But we do respect that not all people will do like us as a Hindu Balinese. Like we do all the amati geni, not using fire or electricity. Amati this is not for working, not for going outside, and not doing laser. So that there is four things that we probably need to do. The date for the Nyepi is on the 3rd of March 2022. Yes. Yes, I'd love to, and I will invite some other Balinese parents so that we can have a very good conversation. Because, like I said, in Bali is a many area, and they have many different experience depending on the area. All right. Thank you so much, everyone. Terima kasih.